1 month after the decisive battle at the trade corridor, the Grent were still coming to terms with how drastically their position in the galaxy had changed. What had begun as a well-intentioned species restoration project had culminated in open warfare, catastrophic losses, and the revelation of humanity's true military might, a force that had remained hidden until the moment of greatest need. Clarke stood at the viewport of her new office aboard Unity Station, a massive joint human Grent facility constructed with remarkable speed at the heart of the former trade corridor. Below, construction drones swarmed around damaged Grent vessels, repairing and upgrading them with technology far beyond what the trading species had previously possessed. Her enhancement lights cycled through contemplative patterns as she watched the activity. The Grent had lost 37 ships and nearly 2,000 lives in the Droo attack, yet within a month, most of the damaged infrastructure had been restored, trade routes re-established, and security protocols completely redesigned with human assistance. "Quite a view," came a familiar voice from the doorway. Commander William Bright stood there, now wearing the formal uniform of the United Earth Defense Fleet rather than the casual attire or security liaison garb she had previously seen him in. "Commander Bright," Clarke acknowledged, her enhancement lights shifting to a welcoming pattern. "Or should I say fleet captain now? I understand you received a promotion." "William is fine," he replied with an easy smile. "The promotion was merely formal recognition of what was already my actual role. My superiors felt maintaining the cover story was no longer necessary." "Much has changed in a short time," Clarke observed, gesturing for him to enter. "Your people work with remarkable efficiency. Most of my species believed it would take years to recover from the Droo attack. Humanity has centuries of experience rebuilding after conflict," William said, joining her at the viewport. "Unfortunately, it's a skill we've had ample opportunity to perfect." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the reconstruction efforts below. Finally, Clarke turned to face her human ally directly. "The Trading Council meets tomorrow to discuss our formal response to humanity's intervention and the proposed security alliance. I assume you're here to offer perspective?" William's expression remained neutral, but his eyes carried a knowing look. "Just a friendly conversation between representatives of allied species, nothing official." "Of course," Clarke agreed, her enhancement lights pulsing with subtle amusement. This diplomatic dance had become familiar over the past weeks, unofficial conversations that somehow always preceded official policy decisions. "How are your people coping with the revelations?" William asked. "Learning that humans have maintained a military capability far beyond what was publicly known must be unsettling." "Less than you might expect," Clarke replied thoughtfully. "The Grent have always respected preparation and contingency planning. Many view humanity's hidden fleet as simply good business practice, insurance against future threats." "And the ongoing operations against remaining Droo outposts?" William pressed gently. Clarke's enhancement lights dimmed slightly. "More contentious. Some council members believe we should participate more actively in the military campaign. They argue that since we helped inadvertently resurrect the Droo, we bear responsibility for their final containment." William shook his head, his expression turning serious. "If I may offer some friendly advice, the Grent would be wise to focus on what you do best. Rebuilding trade networks, fostering economic growth, creating stability through commerce. Let humanity handle the war. It's what we're unfortunately good at." "You sound like Clarke noted. He's been advocating a similar position. "A wise trader indeed," William replied with genuine respect. "The galaxy needs the Grent to be traders and diplomats, not soldiers. Each species has its strengths. Ours happens to include the capacity for sustained military action when necessary." "Is it necessary?" Clarke asked quietly. "The complete eradication of the Droo?" William's expression darkened. "The intelligence we've gathered from captured Droo vessels confirms our worst fears. Their primary facilities beyond the rim have been producing not just millions of Droo, but specialized warrior variants specifically designed for conquest. Their plan was never peaceful coexistence, it was galactic domination. Beginning with the subjugation of humanity, he moved away from the viewport, his posture subtly shifting to a more military bearing. In human theology, there's a concept called the devil, the ultimate embodiment of evil, a being that exists solely to corrupt, destroy, and dominate. In many ways, the Droo fulfill that role in our collective history. The difference, he continued, is that while our devil is a spirit that can't be killed, the Droo are flesh and metal. They can and must be stopped permanently. The alternative is unthinkable. Telek's enhancement lights cycled through solemn patterns. I understand the necessity. I witnessed their cruelty firsthand. I just wonder if there might have been another way. If the embryonic Droo we were cultivating might have developed differently, free from their ancestors' aggressive impulses. A noble thought, William acknowledged, but one the cybernetic Droo never intended to allow. According to the data we've recovered, the genetic templates they provided included hardwired neural pathways for aggression and dominance. They weren't interested in evolution, only in replication. A chime from Telex's communication system interrupted their conversation. The preliminary council session is beginning, she noted. They're discussing the proposed status referendum. Ah yes, the vote on your relationship with Earth going forward, William said, his tone carefully neutral. A significant decision for your people. Indeed, Telex agreed. Some advocate for full independence, others for a formal alliance, and a growing faction supports integration as an autonomous region within the human sphere. Whatever the Grent decide, William said as he prepared to leave, humanity will respect your choice. We value your species too highly to impose terms. As he reached the doorway, he paused. One last thing, Director Telex. Admiral Marshner asked me to convey his personal gratitude for your role in exposing the Droo threat. Many lives were saved because you chose to act on our warning rather than dismiss it. We still lost many, Telex replied, her enhancement lights dimming with remembered grief. Yes, William acknowledged. But had you not acted when you did, had you not modified those embryos and forced the Droo to reveal themselves prematurely, the losses would have been catastrophic. Entire civilizations might have fallen before we could mobilize an effective response. After he departed, Telex remained at the viewport, watching as a human medical vessel docked with a damaged Drent trader. The efficiency of their cooperation was remarkable. Human technology seamlessly integrating with Grent systems, each species contributing their unique capabilities to the joint effort. Perhaps, she reflected, this was the true strength that the Droo could never comprehend. Not domination, but symbiosis. Different species working together, each according to their nature, creating something greater than any could achieve alone. With that thought providing clarity, she departed for the council chambers, her decision on the upcoming vote now firmly resolved in her mind. The Great Hall of Trade had been reconstructed with impressive speed following the Droo attack, though subtle changes revealed humanity's influence. Enhanced shield generators disguised as architectural elements, sensor arrays integrated into the traditional Grent symbols adorning the walls, and a significantly expanded observation gallery where diplomatic representatives from allied species now sat. At the center of the chamber, the Trading Council's ancient platforms hovered in their traditional formation, the eldest occupying the highest position. Her cybernetic enhancements, far older than any others present, pulsed with the formal patterns of official deliberation. The preliminary discussions have concluded, she announced, her voice carrying the metallic timbre of age. We now move to formal consideration of the status referendum. The options before the Council are threefold: complete independence with a mutual defense treaty, formal alliance with specific security guarantees, or integration as an autonomous trading authority within the United Earth sphere of influence. Telex, seated among the senior directors, noted the enhancement patterns of her colleagues. Despite their carefully maintained official demeanors, their lights revealed the tension underlying the proceedings. This was perhaps the most consequential decision the Grent had faced in centuries. The eldest's ancient eyes surveyed the chamber. Before we proceed to statements of position, Director Telex has requested the opportunity to address the Council. As the principal architect of our initial Droo engagement and witness to the subsequent conflict, her perspective merits our attention. Rising from her platform, Telex moved to the central speaking position, her enhancement lights shifting to the formal pattern used for official council addresses. Honored eldest, esteemed council members, allied observers, she began, acknowledging each group with a traditional gesture. A month ago, our species faced extinction at the hands of a force we ourselves had helped resurrect. Today, we gather in a rebuilt chamber to determine our future course. That we have this opportunity is itself remarkable, a testament not just to our resilience, but to the intervention of those who might have simply allowed us to suffer the consequences of our misjudgment. She activated a holographic display showing the trade corridor before and after the human intervention. The devastation of the Droo attack transformed into renewed infrastructure, more advanced and extensive than before. We Grent have always prided ourselves on clear-eyed assessment of reality. It is the foundation of profitable trade, and reality now demands we acknowledge certain truths. The galaxy is more dangerous than we believed. Our species lacks the military capability to defend against advanced threats like the Droo. And humanity, long thought to be merely one trading partner among many, possesses capabilities and foresight far beyond what we had assessed. Murmurs passed through the Council at this frank admission, but Telex continued undeterred. I have reviewed all available data on human civilization, their history, their social structures, their treatment of allied species. What emerges is not the profile of a conquering empire, but of a defensive coalition forged through hard experience. They do not seek domination but security. They value not subjugation but cooperation. She gestured to the observation gallery where human representatives sat alongside delegates from a dozen other species. Look at their existing alliances. Each partner species maintains its cultural autonomy, its internal governance, its unique contribution to the collective. None have been absorbed or erased. Moreover, she continued, humanity's approach to the Droo threat reveals much about their character. They could have acted unilaterally but chose to share intelligence, allowing us to make our own decisions. They could have abandoned us to our fate when those decisions led to conflict, but chose to intervene at critical cost to themselves. They could have imposed terms after saving us, but chose instead to offer options and respect our decision. Telex's enhancement lights settled into the pattern of formal recommendation. Based on these facts, and on my direct experience with human representatives before, during, and after the conflict, I advocate for the third option, integration as an autonomous trading authority within the human sphere, not from fear or necessity, but from recognition of optimal mutual benefit. Our species excels at trade, diplomacy, and economic development. Humanity excels at security, technological innovation, and crisis response. Together, we create a synergy that neither could achieve alone, precisely the sort of complementary partnership that has driven the most profitable ventures throughout our history. She concluded with the traditional formula, "For the good of galactic trade, I so recommend." As Telex returned to her platform, the Council erupted in discussion, enhancement lights flashing in complex patterns of agreement, objection, and analysis. The debate continued for hours, with various Council members presenting alternative perspectives and raising legitimate concerns about sovereignty, cultural preservation, and historical independence. Throughout the proceedings, Telex noted the human representatives remained silent, making no attempt to influence the decision. Their restraint spoke volumes about their respect for Grent autonomy, even when their strategic interests were directly involved. Finally, as the debate reached its natural conclusion, the eldest raised her ancient hands for silence. "We have heard all perspectives and analyzed all data. The time has come for decision." The voting process was swift and efficient, as befit a species evolved for commerce. Each council member's enhancement lights pulsed with their choice, the patterns aggregated in a central display that shifted and flowed as the votes accumulated. When the final tally stabilized, A hush fell over the chamber. The pattern was clear, if not unanimous. 73% in favor of integration as an autonomous authority, 21% preferring formal alliance, and 6% advocating complete independence. "The Council has spoken," the eldest declared. "The Grent Trading Authority will integrate with the United Earth Sphere as an autonomous economic administration, maintaining our cultural traditions and trading practices while accepting the security umbrella and technological partnership offered by humanity." She turned to the human delegation. "We request formal drafting of the integration framework, with specific provisions for commercial autonomy, cultural preservation, and proportional representation in joint governance bodies." Admiral Marshner, who had observed the proceedings in respectful silence, rose and bowed in the traditional Grent manner. "On behalf of United Earth, we accept your decision with honor. The framework will be developed collaboratively with full respect for Grent traditions and expertise. Together, we build a stronger future for all our peoples." As the formal session concluded, Telex found herself approached by both and William Bright, who had observed from different sections of the chamber. "A historic day," noted, his ancient eyes gleaming with approval, "though I suspect not everyone will immediately recognize its wisdom." "Progress rarely comes with unanimous consent," William agreed. "But the foundation is solid. Your speech was compelling, Director Telex. Forthright without being alarmist, pragmatic while acknowledging deeper values." "I simply stated the reality as I understand it," Telex replied. After witnessing the Droo's true nature and humanity's response, the optimal path forward seemed clear. Om's enhancement lights pulsed with the pattern used to acknowledge a student's growth. "You've evolved beyond mere trading calculations to true strategic thinking, young Telex, the mark of a true leader." "Speaking of strategic matters," William interjected, his tone shifting to something more official, "Admiral Marshner would like to extend an invitation. A joint human-Grent task force is being assembled to coordinate economic recovery throughout sectors affected by the Droo conflict. Given your unique experience and the Council's decision today, you would be an ideal candidate to lead the Grent contingent." Telex's enhancement light cycled through consideration patterns. The trade corridor reconstruction is still ongoing and proceeding ahead of schedule, pointed out. "Others can manage the implementation phase. Your talents would be better applied to the broader strategic vision." After a moment's reflection, Telex nodded. "I accept, provided the Council approves the assignment." "They already have," revealed, his enhancement lights pulsing with subtle amusement. "The vote was taken during the preparatory session this morning. Some decisions, it seems, require less deliberation than others." As they parted ways, Telex found herself contemplating the rapid evolution of events. What had begun as a simple trade initiative had transformed not just the Grent's relationship with humanity, but their place in the galactic order. They had moved from independent traders to key partners in a new, more robust coalition of species, one that might finally bring lasting stability to a galaxy long fractured by distrust and conflict. And all because they had chosen to heed a warning delivered through ancient VCR tapes. As head of the Grent contingent in the Joint Recovery Task Force, she had been invited to observe the final strategic briefing before the campaign's conclusion. The ship's main tactical center hummed with activity as officers from a dozen species coordinated their efforts. At the center of the room, a massive holographic display showed the known galaxy, with Droo facilities marked in pulsing red. Most had already been neutralized, their symbols dimmed to indicate successful operations. "Director Telex," Admiral Marshner greeted her as she entered. "Thank you for joining us. I believe this session will provide valuable context for your economic recovery planning." "Admiral," she acknowledged with a respectful inclination, "the invitation is appreciated. Understanding the full scope of the conflict will indeed help us prioritize reconstruction efforts." Marshner gestured toward the display. "As you can see, we've made substantial progress. Of the 47 major Droo installations identified from captured data, 43 have been neutralized. The remaining 4 are scheduled for coordinated operations within the next 72 hours. Telex's enhancement lights pulsed with inquiry. Neutralize implies various possible outcomes. May I ask about the disposition of any Droo survivors? A subtle tension passed through the room, officers exchanging glances before returning to their duties. A fair question, Marshner acknowledged, and one that reveals the philosophical differences between our species. He led her to a more private briefing alcove where they could speak candidly. The Droo installations were primarily military in nature, he explained, bringing up detailed schematics, production facilities for weapons, ships, and combat-optimized Droo variants. Our operations prioritized complete neutralization of these threats, with minimal risk to our personnel. William Bright joined them, adding, "What the Admiral is diplomatically avoiding stating explicitly is that we haven't taken prisoners, Director Telex. The cybernetic Droo fought to the last in every engagement, activating self-destruct protocols rather than surrendering, and the biological specimens we found were military units with hardwired neural pathways for aggression, essentially living weapons." "I see," Telex replied, her enhancement lights cycling through solemn patterns. "So the species will indeed become extinct, as was originally intended a century ago." "Not necessarily," Marshner corrected, surprising her. "We've recovered extensive genetic records and embryonic samples from several facilities. Unlike the military variants you encountered, these appear to be baseline Droo genetic profiles, unmodified by the cybernetic faction's warrior enhancements." "You're preserving them?" Telex asked, her enhancement lights flickering with surprise. William nodded. "Contained in secure stasis with multiple redundant safeguards. Not for resurrection, but for study and preservation of genetic diversity. Extinction, even of a hostile species, represents a loss to the galaxy's biological heritage." "A more nuanced approach than I expected," Telex admitted. "Humanity has learned from its own history," Marshner explained. "Total eradication creates its own ethical problems, even when seemingly justified by security concerns. We're eliminating the threat without eliminating all possibility of a future redemption. Generations from now, when the galaxy might be prepared to safely integrate a transformed Droo presence." "Much like your own plan for the embryos," William added, "but with considerably more safeguards and a much longer time frame." Before Telex could respond, an alert sounded throughout the tactical center. Officers rushed to their stations as the main display zoomed in on a region beyond the galactic rim. "Priority signal from Strike Group Theta," reported a communications officer. "They've engaged a previously unidentified Droo facility, significant resistance, requesting reinforcements." Marshner moved swiftly back to the command position, his expression hardening as he assessed the tactical feed. "Deploy reserve units from Sectors 3 and 4, full combat authorization, and get me a direct channel to Strike Group Commander." As the tactical center erupted into coordinated activity, William guided Telex to an observation position where they could monitor without interfering. "This wasn't in the briefing," she noted, her enhancement lights pulsing with concern. "No," William agreed grimly. "This appears to be a facility not documented in the data we captured, possibly their final fallback position." The tactical display updated with live feed from the engagement. Human and allied vessels exchanging fire with what appeared to be the largest Droo installation they had yet encountered. Unlike the previous facilities, this one showed signs of being heavily populated, with thousands of life signs detected. "This isn't just a military outpost," Telex observed, her enhanced perception analyzing the data streaming across the displays. "The energy signature patterns suggest residential sections, cultural repositories." "Their actual colony," William confirmed. "Haven," they called it in the communications we intercepted. "The last refuge of the original cybernetic Droo who fled during the war." For several tense hours they watched as the battle unfolded. The Droo fought with desperate intensity, deploying previously unseen weapons and tactics, but the coalition forces responded with overwhelming coordination and firepower, systematically dismantling the colony's defenses. Finally, as the outer defenses collapsed and boarding operations began, a massive energy surge registered throughout the facility. "They've activated their self-destruct protocols," an officer announced. Quantum cascade reaction building. All vessels advised to withdraw beyond safety perimeter. Evacuation status of our boarding teams, Marshner demanded. 63% extracted, Admiral. Remaining teams reporting heavy resistance blocking their withdrawal routes. Marshner's face remained impassive as he made the difficult calculation. Continue extraction efforts until the final safety margin, not 1 second longer. Telex watched as the coalition vessels pulled back from the doomed facility, rescue shuttles racing against time to extract the remaining boarding teams. On the tactical display, the energy readings from Haven continued to climb toward critical levels. "This is their final statement," William said quietly beside her. "Rather than face defeat, they choose annihilation. The same choice they made a century ago when they fled rather than seek terms. Is it choice or programming?" Telex wondered. After so many generations of cybernetic enhancement, how much of their original nature remains? How much is simply execution of hardwired protocols? A philosophical question with no clear answer, William acknowledged. But practically speaking, the result is the same. The display flared brilliant white as Haven's self-destruct sequence reached completion. A massive shockwave expanded outward, dissipating harmlessly before reaching the withdrawn coalition fleet. When the sensors cleared, nothing remained of the once mighty Droo colony but scattered debris and fading energy readings. "Final extraction report," called the operations officer. 89% of boarding teams successfully recovered, estimated 47 personnel lost with the facility. Marshner acknowledged the report with a grim nod before addressing the tactical center. "All units stand down from combat alert. Transition to recovery and analysis operations. We'll hold memorial services for our fallen at 800 tomorrow." As the immediate crisis passed and the tactical center settled into post-operation procedures, Marshner approached Telex and William. "Not how I had hoped to conclude this briefing," he said, "but perhaps fitting that you witness the end of the cybernetic Droo. Their story began with your initiative, after all." "A sobering reminder of the consequences of underestimating existential threats," Telex replied, her enhancement lights pulsing with respectful mourning for those lost in the operation. "The Grent will not forget this lesson. Nor will humanity," Marshner assured her, "which is why the preserved genetic samples will remain secured under joint oversight, a reminder of both the potential for resurrection and the danger it represents." As they prepared to depart the tactical center, William held back for a private word with Telex. "There's something you should know," he said, his voice low. "Before the facility's destruction, our teams managed to extract some of their historical archives. Among them was a record of the original decision to establish contact with the Grent." "What did it reveal?" Telex asked, her enhancement lights pulsing with curiosity. "They chose your species deliberately after extensive observation," William explained. "Not randomly, not opportunistically. They selected the Grent specifically because of your commercial focus, your tendency to see opportunities rather than threats, and your tradition of keeping trading operations independent from governmental oversight." Telex enhancement lights cycled through realization patterns. "We were targeted for our weaknesses." "Your specializations," William corrected. "Every species has blind spots corresponding to their strengths. The Droo were expert at identifying and exploiting them. Humanity's militarism, your commercialism, both have advantages and vulnerabilities. Which is why partnership matters," Telex concluded. "Different perspectives, complementary strengths." "Exactly," William agreed. "Together we covered each other's blind spots. That's the foundation of any successful coalition. Diversity of thought and approach, united by common purpose." As they made their way to the shuttle bay for Telex's return journey, they passed a viewport offering a spectacular view of distant galaxies beyond their own. "What happens now?" Telex asked, pausing to admire the vista. With the Droo threat neutralized and reconstruction underway, William considered the question, his gaze also fixed on the distant stars. "Humanity has spent a century focused on a single existential threat, devoting enormous resources to its containment. With that chapter closed, we can finally turn our attention outward again. To exploration, to discovery, to building rather than simply preserving. New trade routes, Telex noted, her enhancement lights brightening. New species to meet, new markets to develop. Exactly, William smiled. Your expertise will be invaluable in that expansion. The Grent approach to first contact, focusing on mutual benefit rather than potential threat, balances humanity's more cautious instincts. For the good of galactic trade, Telex recited the traditional Grent motto. And, for something more, William added, echoing what had become their shared refrain, for a galaxy where different species recognize that their differences are strengths when properly aligned. As Telex boarded her shuttle for the return journey to Unity Station, she reflected on the extraordinary path that had led her from a simple trade initiative to this pivotal moment in galactic history. The Droo were gone, but the partnerships forged in response to their threat remained, stronger now, tested by fire and sacrifice. What had begun as a project to resurrect an extinct species had instead given birth to something perhaps more significant, a new model of interspecies cooperation, where each contributed according to their nature toward a shared vision of prosperity and security. And in that new beginning, Telex found both purpose and hope, the greatest profit of all. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Video shares, memberships, and super thanks help the channel grow as well, so feel free to partner with this channel in that way as we grow. With that all said, thank you again for listening to the story, and thank you for your time. On the left side of your screen are some videos I think you might be interested in. I hope to see you in the next one.